Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Believe in Duke podcast. I'm Steve Wiseman from the Raleigh News and Observer, joined as always by Sheldon Williams. Big weekend for Duke basketball, Sheldon. 2 wins in the Sweet 16. Just the first 2 steps on what they hope is a journey of 6 wins, obviously, to get into a national championship. But just what were your feelings after this weekend's games with the wins in the tournament over Mount St. Mary's and Baylor?
I mean, very happy with it. I mean, anytime you actually are able to win games and win in a notable fashion like we have done the last couple of games, 30-point wins and almost a 30-point win against Baylor. Uh, it's great to survive in advance, but it's also great to do it in a great fashion. So now all of a sudden your confidence, things like that are still up, and going to the next week, which is going to be 0-0 all over again, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, another kind of 2-game tournament. You have 2 games in Raleigh. Now you go into Newark, the Prudential Center up there. You have to win 2 games there, and then obviously 2 games in San Antonio if you get there down the road. But
Right.
this team continued to handle its business. We've seen some teams don't do that. You let underdogs stay in the game. Duke left no doubt in these games. Now Baylor obviously was a better team than Mount St. Mary's, and so you expected them to stay with them a little bit. And it was 24-23, about 7 minutes to go in the first half. So they were right there. And then Duke took off and took a 17-point halftime lead, and it was never close again. But mostly, Duke they never lose control of a game. It hasn't happened since the Clemson loss, which is now a 12-game winning streak ago. So that's pretty good getting it done. And just the mindset of this team, they continue to blow teams out, and obviously, as we go forward in the tournament, that's going to stop at some point, I think. Maybe not, right?
Maybe. Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm not sure, so I keep it rolling as much as we could. But it was great to see the guys, really play. And you mentioned this before we even started. How the coach said, I didn't know Steph Curry going to come out there and play. So Proctor, I don't know what's gotten into you, what you've been doing, what you've been eating, but keep doing that, keep eating it, and whatever it is, we need that right there. So the last 3 games, you've been unbelievable. Hopefully you can keep that up.
Absolutely. He has been red hot from 3-point. Yeah, Scott Drew, the Baylor coach, joked after the game that if he knew Steph Curry was going to show up, he would have prepared differently. But anyway, there's nothing you can do about that. He did suggest maybe in the NIL era, maybe NC State should try to sign Tyrese away from Duke. Because in that arena, if he's going to act like Steph Curry.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's and NC State does have a new coach now that is willing to make strong offers. So anyway, that's another joke. But anyway, yes. But anyway, we'll break that down. We'll break down these 2 wins over again Mount St. Mary's and Baylor on today's edition. We'll talk about the game coming up Thursday night, 9:39 up in Newark against Arizona, which brings another late game, but one final matchup with Caleb Love, right? One final game against that guy. So that'll be the big thing there.
Another familiar face.
That's right. Just like we had Jeremy in the game against Baylor, Jeremy Roach. Yep. But we'll break all that down today on this edition. But first, I want to remind everybody about our sponsor, Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest. Bet Online continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, Bet Online has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. So let's go back to Steph Curry or Tyrese Proctor. 19 out of his last 33 pointers over the last 3 games. He made 6 against Louisville in the ACC title game, 6 more against Mount St. Mary's on Thursday's or Friday's first round, and then 7 against Baylor. I mean, Tyrese has been a better 3-point shooter this year. He's shooting 41.5% for the year. He was in the mid-30s last year, 32% as a freshman. So we knew he was getting better. But to do it at this time, this is when legends are made, right? This is when if you want to be a special player at Duke, you're doing it right now, isn't Tyrese?
Yeah, I mean, especially for Tyrese. I mean, he was 9 for 10 from the field, 7 for 8 from the 3-point line. So he had a really good shooting game all around, pretty much for us last game. But yeah, I mean, anytime you actually are in a groove and hitting your stride, so to speak, when we really need it, which is right now during the push for the national championship. I want to say it's been great to see because I know he didn't have end of the year run like he wanted to last year, and the fact that he came out this year and I don't know if he's thinking about this or not, whatever, but he's trying to redeem himself for what he did last year. He was a better player than that than last year, and the fact that he's doing it right now is great to see.
Yeah, that was referenced yesterday in the conversations that us media folks had with Coach Shire and Tyrese and the team. It was like 51 weeks ago was the loss to NC State, in Dallas, and Tyrese was 0 for 9 from the field that day, didn't score at all in that
Mhm.
loss. I know he took it really hard. He and John had some real hard, in-depth conversations about what's going on and everything. And he's come back and he's a different player now. He's just a more confident player. And John talking about it even had to kind of pause. He was emotional. John Shire was at the podium talking about this in post game because he knows all that Tyrese has been through his whole 3 years. I mean, going back to when John called him on that day in May of 2022 saying, I need you to come to school a year early. Duke needs you now. Will you do this?
Mhm.
And, it wasn't it was okay freshman year, not a great one. Tyrese could have gone to the NBA, had opportunities, or to go back to Australia and play pro, whatever. And he said, no, I want to stay here a little while longer. And then last year happened and it didn't go as great. Obviously, the last game we just talked about. And he stuck with it again. And John was very emotional talking about the bond he has with Tyrese. And it's kind of old school. It's throwback. It's the way coaches used to be when you had guys for multiple years. But now Duke's really benefiting from that. It was really an interesting turn of events there, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear stories like that, I think of that's what college basketball really is. You have a chance to get from a kid to a young man, and you're there during those important 3 to 4 years, gap where you're growing up super fast without your parents being around, and you already having guidance from somebody that your parents are trusting in you, and all of a sudden you build this relationship with this guy outside of your family who's your coach, and all of a sudden you start taking steps towards the person who you can become later in life. And the fact that he went through different ups and downs and turmoils or whatever you want to say in his career off the court, his relationship with the coach, the staff, and even the players that come and go help build him to where he's at now. And I think that's what college basketball is really all about. Like you just have a guy who's the coach who's invested into the school and the kids and want to see them do well. And the fact that he's sticking with them, I love it. I just love it.
Yeah, and Tyrese, yeah, decided to stick too. I mean, obviously, there's opportunities he could have gone to some other school. Obviously, a lot of people from Duke did last year, right?
Yeah,
Including
yeah,
Jeremy Roach, who we'll talk about here
yeah,
in a minute with the Baylor game. But Tyrese stuck it out. He said, I'm not somebody who likes to run away from things." He wanted to stay and do it, and it's working out really well right now. And so, from a Duke point of view, you hope it continues 4 more games, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because the difference he makes in this offense when he's again, we've talked about this a lot this year, whether it's Khan or Tyrese, somebody that can take those kickouts, when people collapse on Cooper and he's going to get all the attention, just opens up the entire offense. It makes it, if Tyrese or Khan are shooting like that, I don't think Duke can be beaten. I think they're going to win the whole thing.
yeah. I mean, that's tough. I mean, I know Khan didn't have the game that he normally has. Outside of his shooting capability, he only had 12. But when you have a guy like right next to him and shooting so well, and he only missed one shot the whole game. Oh, keep feeding that guy, keep finding him, that type of thing. And that's kind of speaks on the unselfishness we have with this team. But, yeah, I'm waiting for a breakout game for Khan as well. He's been kind of around that 12, 14 point mark, but it's been blowout. So I can't say too much about it. One person I am kind of thinking about is Isaiah, and I'm hoping that he can find his touch because we haven't seen him as much lately because I don't know matchups or he's not hitting his shot or what. But last game I think he was 0 for 2 and
Mhm.
only played maybe I don't know. I'm not sure how many minutes he played, but the fact that I haven't seen him light up or hit his first shot, I'm hoping he can get it going too because we're gonna need him as well.
He's had stretches this year where he hasn't played some. I mean, it's kind of been that way for him. Caleb Foster has done the same thing, and he's played better of late. So Mason Gillis got some more extra minutes yesterday because Cooper was in foul trouble in the first half. He got
Hmm.
more minutes against Baylor, and I know his voice in the huddle, not the locker room too, but the huddle um, has really become a strong part of this team. Mason Gillis,
Okay.
he I know yesterday, late in the first half, Duke had kind of taken a little bit of a lead there. They were behind. They got by 5 or 6. There was a timeout, and he said he's starting to identify these inflection points in games. And it was late in the first half. It's like, okay, we got this little lead. We can make it. We can go into halftime tied or up by a couple points, or we can go up by like 10 or 12 or 15. And it
Hmm.
turned out it was 17. Duke scored the last 12 points in the first half. So they took it to heart. Mason's a guy. He was in the national championship game last year with Purdue.
Yeah.
He was also part of a team that lost to Fairleigh Dickinson in the first round. His experience in this tournament,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
boy, that's everything, isn't it? Everything.
Yeah, I mean, you go from extremes, the low end to the high end type thing. Even though he didn't finish off the way he wanted to with Purdue in the championship, but to have a guy with that experience, it does well. That knows how to notify the players when he sees a little bit of slippage or opportunities to actually go up the next level or turn up another notch. I think that's great for us to respond like that. Maybe that's the reason why we did go on that run at the end of the half, where
Mm-hmm.
we came out and just played unbelievably well. And it's kind of hard to come back from that if you're the other team, especially coming into halftime. Like, man, we already smaller than these guys. They're starting five. Our biggest guys like 6'7", and they're starting five. Their big smallest guy 6'5". You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like what I'm saying? Like, what else can we do? Like now they hitting every shot. Like what can we do? So they have these thoughts going on into their brains going into the halftime after having a 17-point lead like that. And like it's very draining, and a team can't really always bounce back from that when you have something like that going on, especially coming out in the second half with a full pace again, and you hit them again. You're like, yeah, there's not much we can do anymore.
They came out in the second half. Baylor did and hit 8 of the first 16 shots. Pretty good. The first 10 minutes, they shot 50%. If they were going to make a run, that was going to be
That
it.
was time. That was time.
And Duke was still up by 15 points. 10 minutes into the second half, they'd cut 2 points off the deficit, and it was over. That was just a strength that Duke showed yesterday. And also, I thought, sitting courtside, I was fortunate to be sitting right on the court. The physical play in that game early by Baylor, they tried to bully Duke a little bit. Because
Hmm.
they knew they were smaller height wise, right? But they were
Right.
trying to bulk them a little, and it reminded me of 2 years ago with Tennessee.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this time Duke had the answers. I mean,
Yeah.
Mason was out there, and everybody we talk about, and Pat Gongba got the hook and hold. The guy got the
Hmm.
flagrant one foul,
Yeah.
and that could have thrown him off, right? Because he got thrown to the court pretty hard, but
Hmm.
back up, made the free throws. And then they had a pass to Coop for the dunk, and it was like, this is over. Like this team has that toughness, right? They seem to
Yeah.
have that toughness.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if the team or the coaching staff maybe show clips from that previous game a couple years ago to kind of put in these guys' minds, especially the guys that are still in the team, and then the rest of the guys that are knowing that this could be something that can happen to us. Be prepared for it type
Mm-hmm.
situation. So,
Mm-hmm.
but again, to see us not fall into that. Oh yeah, they're gonna play with a little cheap shot, so we got to do a little cheap shot back, and then go back and forth, and then we out of our own game plan, and we're not playing the way that we're gonna play. So it would give credit to this Duke team that they stay the course and they stay prepared with the coaching staff had them ready for it, and you couldn't do much with all the guys playing well and shooting the ball well like that. I mean, even like you said with Patrick, I mean he had 8 points, but he had some big buckets at big times for us too. So it's like, what can you do?
Exactly. Exactly. So many answers, and all this without Malik Brown. He's not even in uniform still. He's not even practicing. There's hope. There's I would say slight hope that he'll play again this year. Maybe. I mean, it's just hard to tell because it's that shoulder and it's got to get right. And we
Yeah.
talked about maybe the brace and all that, but he likes to get out there with his arms, so that might not be possible. But anyway, but the toughness they're showing to do this, and Pat Gongba to step in, and he got some time during the year, and it's worked out okay. So this team has a togetherness and a connectedness that's really impressive. And one thing I got to know a little more about this team over the last couple of weeks here is this mindset, this motto, this business philosophy, this philosophy they're following called Kaizen. And it's a Japanese philosophy. Kaizen means continual growth, and John Shire introduced it to the team last summer. Um, John's good friends with Brad Stevens from the Celtics and other NBA people, and I know Quinn Snyder has used it with his teams before. Um, an idea of, and I talked to the players about it. Like Cooper said, it means getting 1% better every day. That's what it means to him. It means that, and I talked to Isaiah about this, going back to his slumps sometimes, and Caleb Foster having slumps and not playing. It's that if you need, let's say, 10 steps to get better, to improve, to get back to where you want to be, you don't try to do all 10 in one day. It's one step here, one step there. Don't try to get overwhelmed by it. Just continually getting better. And I think that is a mindset of this team. I mean, they have continually gotten better all year long, incrementally, and to where now they're playing really incredible basketball. And I just wondered, from your background, what kind of philosophies and stuff you dealt with it in different pro stops or whatever. I know all coaches have these things they do. This one
Mhm.
has seemed to really work for Duke.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's situations you can do that for every team, but when you do know that you have a special team, you do know you have to have something that for them all to buy in, and that sounds like the Kaizen, the Japanese philosophy you just said, is what they doing to do that. I was fortunate enough to be on the team where we went to the NBA Finals with the Celtics, and Doc Rivers had this saying Ubuntu, and it's I am who I am because of who we all are. And like you said, different players have different meanings of how they take different things when they read it or they think about it. But it takes everybody on that team to make that team. So I am no better than this other person because this other person is still helping me become who the best version of me. That type thing. So it was great to have not only, I mean, I was playing with Hall of Famers with like, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, uh, Paul Pierce, what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, these great guys, Rasheed Wallace,
yeah.
all these great guys and everything, and they buying in, and these are future Hall of Famers. I'm like, I'm seeing it that these guys are buying in, and there's no reason for me not to buy in. And I'm like, if we all can do the same thing, we can achieve something that's special. Unfortunately, we lost Game 7 in the NBA Finals, but it took all of us believing in that early in the season to even get to that long journey of the season and playoffs and getting to that point. So I love that these guys are taking it to heart and taking what that philosophy and what that means to them, and knowing that it pertains to them in some type of way. I mean, you brought up Caleb Foster with the don't take all 10 steps at once.
Mm-hmm.
That's a journey what we saw in our own eyes from the outside looking in, where he's starting to not playing to all of a sudden itching his way back, and all of a sudden, like, these steps that he's taking to get back to where he was going to be at the beginning of the year, or just back in the rotation. And we've seen that in this season. So I love the fact that they actually are using this philosophy, and like I said, it takes special teams to do special things, and this is one of the things they're doing.
Yeah, that story is available at newsobserver.com. People want to read about it. I just posted it over the weekend. But yeah, what I was also taken by was John introduced us to the team last summer, and they all talked about it, and they would have huddles and say, Kaizen as to in a huddle instead of fight or whatever teams say. Um, and then when they got into like the preseason, John started saying something else, and the players, he said, spoke up and said, "No, no, 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 Kaizen. That's what we're doing. We're sticking with that." So
Yeah.
they mean it, man.
I was like, no, it's not no fight or let's go do whatever. No, it's Kaizen. This is what we talking about. we did all this stuff in the off season in the summer. No, this is what we're going to do. So I love that they actually held John accountable for what he brought to the table. And now he tried to slide away from it. He's like, no. This is what you brought to the table. We sticking with it. So I love that too. So, hey, players hold coaches accountable. Coaches hold players accountable. I love it.
It's working out really well for Duke this year. 33-3, heading to the game with Arizona on Thursday night. 33 wins. I will point out, no other Duke team this century has had more wins than this Duke team, with three exceptions. Those three exceptions were the three championship teams: 2001, 2010, 2015. They all had 35 wins. So this team is accomplishing incredible things. Your team's had 32, I think, you guys topped out at a couple of times there, Sheldon. But I know you wanted more, so I'm going to bring that up. But but this team's doing special stuff, special things.
Yeah, I mean, one a little bit more, but it's okay. It wasn't meant, so I meant to be and everything. But I mean, that's a great step to be a part of. So if there's any indication, you got three different times that we had a record like this, and we came away with the goal. So hopefully it's the case again for this team as well.
This team could be so 33 right now, 4 more wins to the title if you get it. So 37 would be it, and that would match, not to get too far ahead, but the 99 team that went 37-2 and lost in the championship game. That incredible team, what was at 37. So this would match that team for wins, and it's one of the all-time great Duke teams. I mean, I guess they have to get to the Final Four to really stamp that, but this is up there with one of the great Duke teams ever, and it's really special to watch. And Cooper Flagg is having one of the best freshman seasons. He's going to be National Player of the Year, I'm sure, on many awards. He's obviously the National Freshman of the Year. That's not even a competition.
Yeah, he should be the National Player of the Year. Don't give it to an old 26-year-old guy.
That big guy down at the post, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for big guys and everything, but not when they should have been 3 years pro already.
That's right, man. But does Cooper, I get asked this a lot. Is he the greatest Duke freshman that we've seen? I talk about Zion. Tatum didn't have a great year at Duke because he was hurt some at the start of the year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Okafor was National Player of the Year, and Tyus Jones. And Zion and RJ were unbelievably good. Kyrie was hurt a little bit, but he was great when he played. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And you've seen great freshmen. You played with great freshmen. So.
Yeah, I played with great freshmen. I've seen great freshmen. I don't know if we can say he's the greatest Duke freshman. Maybe if they won, that might be a different case. But I want to say if you're talking about like stat wise, I believe Marvin Bagley, he was like 21 and 11 that he averaged.
Yeah.
I think he had like maybe 6 or 7 different 30-point games during his freshman year, that type thing. He didn't win anything. But if you're talking about stats, I think he had one of the better freshman stats for Duke of all freshmen, in that time period. But I don't know. I guess it's a good conversation to have, but I don't know if he would be the best Duke freshman of all time. Again, if he wins it and he's MVP, might be a different story we can kind of come back to later on. But as of right now, I can't give him that right now. He's done amazing things, but I don't know if I can give him the greatest Duke freshman ever right now.
Yeah, there's still work to be done to get on that, because Grant Hill won the championship his freshman year. So to me, that kind of elevates. You talk about Bagley. Bagley had the stats, 30-point games, all that, but they didn't win anything. They didn't get the Final Four. They didn't win the ACC.
Right.
So that kind of diminishes that a little bit. So if you just go by what his stats were, that's the best.
Yeah.
But as far as team, Grant Hill's team, they won it all. And he was a big difference because they didn't, the year before they got smoked by UNLV in the championship game. And that's what, Coach K always said, like, how'd you guys get so much better from one year to the other? He said, we got Grant Hill. That's part of it. So anyway, but Cooper, he's led the team in every category. He's points, rebounds, block shots, assists, steals. That's incredible. And but yeah, they have to win at least these 2 more games to even have that conversation be real. I think if you don't get the Final Four, I know they've already won the ACC regular season and tournament. Those are great accomplishments, but probably needs to get to the Final Four at least. Because that would be, if this team doesn't make it, that's going to be disappointing, I think, for everybody. So
I think so too. I mean, you kind of hit it on the head right there, where at least get to the Final Four, at least get to the point where you're competing in the big show. If you're not able to compete in the big show, like Marvin Bagley, who was not able to do that, then you have to go just on stats, and stats say one thing, but then your team stats say it's something else. And if your team is not getting further in the journey of the season, then I don't know how you can put yourself as the greatest of anything if your team's not even able to get to the big dance or Final Four, should I say.
Yeah. So to get to the Final Four, Duke has to beat Arizona on Thursday night. Already did it once this year. Yeah, again, right. It was 69-55 at McHale Center in Tucson. It was really the first win that told me, all right, these guys got something, because they had come off the loss to Kentucky. And, they played the other teams that, you're supposed to beat. And so we really didn't know. That was the first time this team's got some extra something in there. And that was a win they really had to have, because they were playing Kansas next, and they were losing that one, then beat Auburn. That was really the biggest win. But the thing about Arizona is Caleb Love plays for him. And we know what he has done against Duke in the past. He has not been great every game. He's had some big shots. He had the big shot in the Final Four game in New Orleans. Nobody can forget that one. That really sealed the win or I'll move on from that. Sorry. But this year he didn't shoot well against Duke in Tucson. Last year when he came back to Cameron, he had Tar Heel for life written on his shoes, and he lived the life, man. He did. He led him to a win. So just a little intrigue there to watch what Caleb's going to do. This is the last time he can face Caleb Love. He will be done with his college career after this game. So something to watch.
Yeah. It's crazy. Tar Heel for life, but he's at Arizona. I think this is at least for him, probably a full circle moment for him. Having this situation his last year, being able to play against Duke one last time and try to get vengeance against Duke from earlier in the year. But for us, I think it's more so of not taking them lightly just because we beat them in the past. I think that's going to be our thing, where we still got to make sure that we come out hungry like we did against St. Mary's and Baylor, and don't care if it is Arizona that we're playing again, even though we did beat them at their home place. Now we over here up north, which is still technically kind of a home game for us because we have a lot of great fans in the New York area. So hopefully they bring a lot of energy as well, because I heard there was a lot of Duke fans in Raleigh for those games in Raleigh too. So I'm glad about that. Helping us out, because the stories about us playing in that building wasn't always great sometimes. So I'm glad that they was able to kind of give us energy, and our guys fed off that and went from there.
It was so much Duke blue in the building for those 2 games. It was all around the arena. It was loud. It was like a home game. I mean, except you were not in the great Cameron Indoor Stadium. You're in another type of arena, but it was very loud, and it certainly impacted the team, I think, for sure. And I think we'll see that on Thursday night, and then likely on Saturday in the regional final, because it's like when Duke goes to the Garden, there's all kind of Duke fans up there, so they can take the PATH train over to New Jersey and get over to from Lower Manhattan to Newark for that game.
To Newark.
Yeah. But one thing about handling business and in the environment, and you mentioned about Caleb Love, Duke needs to take care of its own business, not worry about Caleb Love. They did that against Jeremy Roach on Sunday. Jeremy wasn't starting at the end of the year because he had a couple of concussions and everything, but he came in the game and he made a big 3-pointer early that put them up.
Shoot, here we go.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he kind of did that 3 with his hands and kind of looked over the Duke bench area. I thought, okay, all right, Jeremy, I see you.
Yeah. He did that in that move against Coop, and then gave him a little love tap, I guess. When he did that little spin move against Cooper.
Yeah, exactly. But it didn't get in their heads, right? Tyrese We talked to him the day before, 2 days before. We talked to both of them about what will this be like if you play against each other. They'd done it in pickup and summer ball. They played against each other before, right? But not obviously in this situation. Mm-hmm. But it didn't seem to bother. I mean, for all the great things Jeremy Roach did for Duke, he was just another guy on the other team, and they had to take care of him, and they did. He only shot 3 out of 10 yesterday. So I thought that was a good sign of this team's mentality.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. They didn't make it about, Duke versus Jeremy. It was more so just Duke versus Baylor. Jeremy just happened to, play with Baylor. So I was glad about that as well. But yeah, when he first came in and hit that shot, I was like, okay, we've seen him hit big shots for us when a team needs it. I'm hoping that this is not the case when his team needs it. Like, settle down, slow down, or something. But yeah, I was glad about him playing against Duke. So I thought that was a good story in itself. It was kind of sad to see towards the end when he's kind of on the bench with his towel over his head and things like that. Like, I don't know, I could have been on the other side and, type situation, thoughts going in his mind. So it was kind of hard to see that part, whatever. But, he was at Duke for 4 years, so he's still a Dookie, so it was tough to see, but I'm glad our guys got the win, and I wish he had a little bit of a better game, just not a really good game against us. So I'm glad about that part.
Yeah, the layup line, the post game handshake line, I mean to say, was a nice moment. It was nice. John stopped and embraced Jeremy as you would expect. Tyrese did too, and consoling him on the end of his career. They've been through tough times. They've been through happy times. They're great friends. He and Tyrese, they were teammates, and John goes back with Jeremy to high school. He recruited him out of high school, so you know how that relationship gets built and gets strong. And they both said leading up to it they didn't have hard feelings toward each other. It was just a kind of a business thing, right? Kind of a like free agency in the NBA, right? Sometimes you got to go.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the new basketball, I guess. I still don't get into that part right there because, like I said, I'm still on the old school where how it's not the business part like that. But yeah, that's what it is right now. So it's more so, hey, I can come back for this much, whatever, or I can go here for this much. That's the business side of everything. But like you said, it's no hard feelings, so that's a good part about it. So guys are still able to come back to Cameron, still feel embraced and still feel love for wearing that jersey for 4 years.
Right on. Well, that is. We'll look forward to seeing what happens on Thursday night when Duke and Arizona get together. Need this one to get back to the Elite Eight again. That's where they made it last year. So get back to there and then see what happens. But I think the matchup with Arizona looks like, given the way Duke played in McHale Center, Duke will be favored. It's the 1 versus the 4. So Caleb Love did have 29 points last night against Oregon. So he's feeling it. But
I'm sure he's like, I got to get to Duke. I have to get to Duke. So I'm sure he was over here doing that. So I'm sure those thoughts were running through his mind. So now he has Duke. So we're going to see what happens then. So, Duke defense is a little bit different than Oregon's defense.
That's right. That's been proven all year without a doubt. So anyway, that's it for this edition of the podcast, the Believe in Duke podcast. We appreciate our listeners and our subscribers. Appreciate Bet Online sponsoring the podcast. We'll be back with another edition coming up later on this week after the Thursday night game. We'll see what happens with the Blue Devils. They continue this ride, 33-3, trying to make it to the Elite Eight, and Arizona's up next. So everybody enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, let's go Duke.